Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Raising Our Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful, gorgeous, repeat guest is Victoria Coure. She is from the Courageous Smile platform, wonderful podcast, children's podcast, but an entire platform of resources for people who are going through domestic abuse. She is a domestic abuse survivor. What happened to her was absolutely horrific. And we have done, this is our third show. So I really want you to go back and listen to that show. That show is actually, called the Courageous Smile After Abuse, and I want you to listen to that one. And then she's got another one where we talked about the Courageous Smile organization and what she does. We also did a wonderful show with her husband Michael on the Courageous Smile, trying to provide for, if you are ever home, for the dog program they have, which is breeding dogs to be comfort dogs for people, which is absolutely wonderful. And also her book, Who Kicked First, which was about a memoir about the abuse of how much and how brutally she was kicked and abused by her husband while pregnant and all that it entailed. And believe me, folks, it entailed a great deal because unfortunately, she's ended up with devices in her body, numerous issues because of it. She's just recently had her hand cut off, but that didn't stop her. She's doing things from the hospital bed. Nothing stops this woman. She was kicked while pregnant with her daughter, who's just turned 17, and we're going to be talking about her achievements today as well. And she is a woman that got no justice, none whatsoever. The police arrested him, but unfortunately he was in the army and he was protected. So no resources for her and nothing. She was abandoned. This doesn't stop this woman, though. She is okay, that shoot happened to me. It is about who I am today, where I'm going, how I can recover, and what I can do to help other people on that same journey. And please go back and listen to those shows because I know you're going to be blown away. But today we're going to be talking about her chapter that is going to be in our Forgotten Children series. As you know, if anybody's listened to our shows, we've got a Forgotten Children series book coming out, an anthology of authors that are contributing a chapter on the raising of our children and the awareness of what goes on and what we can do about it. And we need to empower our children, folks. They are the adults of the future. Look at community and society today and realize we have a dysfunctional adult society. And that stems from the fact that they have not been supported properly growing up. So each one of these people is going to be contributing a chapter. And of course, her chapter is going to be in there as well, which I'm very excited to read. I haven't read it yet, and she's actually written it of a young boy that actually has passed away, but he's been given that name in honor of it. But it's about the wheelchair adventures, a journey of fairy friendship and triumph. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're also going to be talking about her upcoming book, and we're going to be talking about her daughter's Emmy nomination that has come along. So much going on here in her life. She does not sit back and rest on her laurels. There is no stop with this woman. In fact, you have to force her to stop because she doesn't know how. She's truly an inspiration, and I talk about her a great deal on many other shows because of that. So welcome back, Victoria.
Thank you. I'm so humbled. I don't even know what to say after that. I mean, what an honor. I just love you and think the world of you and what you do. And my daughter is sitting in here and she adores you too. And she's like, "Mom," and I'm like, no, she so, yeah. So I am so honored to be back on here again. And I'm even more honored that you asked me to contribute to this amazing book series.
Well, I, definitely thought of you because most certainly what you do for children. Like you have a whole children's podcast channel as well, where the children come on with their voice. And each one of these children have their own challenges or have their own challenges to face. And they are truly an inspiration and mind blowing, quite honestly, of their state of mindset and how they look at life despite what they're facing. And it's a true example to us who are inclined to be whiners. And when you're up facing what they're facing and they can still look at the life as the sunny side of the street, it's really quite incredible. And plus, you have your own podcast, The Contagious Smile, where you interview people from everywhere on their journeys of life and their courageousness and their smiles and their abundance and what they're going through, which I know has how many million followers now?
We're close to 40 million across all three of our podcasts.
Wow. Wow. That is a big number. I've been doing this 10 years, folks. There's nowhere near, nowhere near.
Well, it's because of people like you that have given us this, not because of anything that I've done. It's all because of the amazing
Don't
people who
undersell
come on.
yourself, love. No, it's because of what you're doing. It definitely is. Uh, she doesn't sleep because she's
No, I
always
don't.
busy doing, which is dreadful. I keep yelling at her to take time off for herself, but she doesn't know what
He
that
does.
means. She has a very supportive husband, Michael, who is her second husband, whom she knew before her husband. You got to come listen to the story, folks. And he's an incredible man. Managed to get him on a podcast referring to the dogs and their forever home. And you can still support that platform, folks, because they're putting all their own money in that, in raising puppy dogs. And he is an ex-veteran and an ex-canine cop. And so he knows what to do with these dogs that they can be support for someone else. And there's a story that he says that I have repeated numerous times on many shows when we've talked about post-traumatic stress, where he said that he used to sleep with a gun under his pillow because of the shadows coming out of the wall at night, and that since having a dog sleeping on the bed, he's never reached for his gun ever again. There's no more shadows. And that impact of that love from an animal right there shows you how important it is. So, and he's certainly, and they're both of them certainly, and breeding these beautiful dogs. I don't know how you let them go because they're all so gorgeous, but they're going to homes where they're providing support and a smile. So much that you are doing, and you've contributed this chapter, but also you've got your own book coming out very soon. So tell us about that, a second book, because you
Yes.
have the other one. But yes, tell us a little bit about that book that you're in the process of.
Well, I have to take a second and tell you that Michael spent 10 hours on Saturday, and all of our kennels have air conditioning and heat in this winter. But bless his heart, he was out in one of these kennels for 10 straight hours holding a fan on our one of our babies, which we call Ariel. They're all pretty much Disney characters. And Ariel was in labor for 10 hours, bless her heart.
Oh,
And my husband was there every moment helping her. And of course, my daughter Faith, is taking pictures of him, saying, "You're in the doghouse." I mean, it was great. But so we now have 25 beautiful little furry, I know, around here right now. Faith just did her book, I Am Kitten, and it released on Amazon, and it came up as on number one on Amazon's list. And so that was amazing. Not that she's not amazing anyway.
and just
Um,
turned 17, folks. Just
she
had her birthday
turned
yesterday.
7. And then she's
Yes.
like, one more year and I'm 18. And I'm like, oh, I can't even. So, so yeah, yeah. Um, I have done two different books that are getting ready. The one I'm most excited, honestly, Sarah, about both of them. But to be asked by you to contribute to the series is so meaningful and heartfelt to me. Because it is such a worthy cause, number one, and number two, it's the fact that I've had the privilege and honor of meeting so many amazing families. I hate the reason we've met, but I love that we have created a family within a family.
Mhm.
And these children are so resilient and so inspirational, and they do not take one thing for granted, not one day for granted, not one moment for granted. And it has been nothing less than an absolute honor. Even when we did my daughter's Make-A-Wish trip, you have never seen a force to be reckoned with. Like, you have all these medical moms that are right there.
Yeah.
And we had a kiddo who had a seizure, and Faith jumps right down and starts taking care of the kid, and everybody's just letting her do it. And we are a very different breed because
Mm,
we are the voice for our children. We fight for our children, and we see them fighting these battles, but yet they always have a smile on their face and they are the sweetest kids. So I came up with Alex's Wheelchair Adventures. It's a journey of furry because we have a dog in there, friendship and triumph. And Alex is in a wheelchair. He gets bullied. He's always wanted to be just accepted for who he
mm.
is. And he's always wanted a best friend. And so he wanted a best friend that he can do imaginary things with without judgment. And he ends up getting his best friend. And without telling too much, he actually also turns a bully who was one time a bully against Alex into a friend.
That's empowering right there and just shows it can be done, right?
It
Um,
can.
And this is, obviously a very different type of chapter to what's going to be in the books. A lot of them are people that are professionals in the work that they do. They have organizations that they're supporting, and the money raised from this book goes back into their organizations. It's shared amongst all the contributors of the book, and it supports their organizations. In your case, not only Contagious Smile, but also the Forever Dogs and supporting that. And this is something that's really, really important, very close to my heart about it, is because most people are just simply unaware. Now, your daughter, Faith, she has her own challenges. And of course, it goes back to being kicked while you were pregnant and her challenges in life. But she is just such an optimistic, participatory, supportive, and illuminating young lady. She really is. But let's talk a little bit about Faith and her challenges and but her achievements that she's doing right now.
Well, I actually was beaten the entire time of my pregnancy. And so ended up in the ICU for the final time and was in labor for well over a week. They couldn't stop the contractions. And when they did an emergency C-section, we both coded.
Mm,
And she life flighted, and they ended up taking her to a children's hospital. And I literally felt like my heart was leaving me because I
mm,
heard this helicopter taking away my daughter, and I
yeah,
was still in the ICU. They told us neither one of us would survive. They told us that, I had a strong probability of losing my leg due to a blood clot from where I was kicked. I had the need for multiple surgeries. I looked inhuman. My face was broken in many, many places. My shoulder was dislocated. Um, I've had to have over 100 surgeries to create this now. I joke with my husband and feel like, some people just unhook their phone in the morning. I've got to unhook my body. Like I have to
yeah,
unhook. I have hearing aids because I'm deaf. I'm literally 95% deaf from rupturing. I've had my eardrums rebuilt. And then I have a titanium shoulder, and then I have a prosthetic arm, and everything has to get charged. It's hard as a woman to accept that. But
yeah.
then from inception, Faith has been such a fighter. The time I finally got to meet her, she was just shy of a week old when I got released. I went straight to her and remained there for 6 months, never left her side. And she had 4 surgeries the day I met her. She was wheeled down and had 4 surgeries. And to this day, she's had over 34.
Mm,
Inspiration. They've done a story about her, and she is so humble. All she wants to do is help other people. As
yes.
we've talked about before, when she was 4 years old, she sat with Santa, and she had apraxia where she couldn't make certain sounds. And she had literally a non functioning, non existing tongue that was only about 2 millimeters wide and long. And the anatomy in her mouth was completely different than ours. So it was
Mm,
way in the back, and she couldn't move it. So no bilabial sounds. And they told her she wouldn't talk, she wouldn't walk, she would never eat by mouth. She had a tracheostomy because she coded every single day, time and time
mm,
again. Then she was having seizures in the NICU, and it ended up where there's certain things that it caused frontal lobe damage of the brain too. So there's some developmental delay there. And literally, Sarah, everything they said she couldn't do, she
mm,
was get out of the way and watch.
yes.
And
Like her
she
mother.
was she was decannulated at just under the age of 3 when they told us that she would be trached at least to high school. And she soared that right out. Even the process of decannulation was not one that we followed. You're supposed to have a sleep study and go through a passy mirror valve trial, and she had a bronchoscopy done to make sure there was no granulomas in the throat. And then her otolaryngologist came in and said, you know what, we're going to move to the PICU and you're taking out the trach. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, we didn't do anything we're supposed to do yet. And we're waiting, like, what? Like, and it worked. And I prayed over her and said, we're here today. If it doesn't happen, great. It's okay. It's on God's time. It's on your time when you're ready. But the fact that we got here is
Yes.
amazing. And I couldn't be prouder. And I took it out, and she was fantastic. She started right up to 100. And that's the very first time I ever got to hear her speak. It was right
Ah,
before she turned 30. Yeah.
yeah.
So another huge landslide is she was diagnosed epileptic, but by the grace of God, she
What
has
is
been seizure
that?
free with epilepsy.
Oh, epilepsy. Right. Yes.
Yeah. So by the grace of God, she has been seizure free for over 8 years.
Wow.
And yeah, so she's had no seizures. And I have to say I'm so proud of her. She got her feeding tube removed not well 7.5 months ago. It was taken out. They thought because she had it for over 16 years, it would have to be surgically closed because the hole, it closed up on its own. She again dumbfounded all the surgeons, and she has been eating every caloric intake by mouth and has been completely tube free for 10 months. So
She's really
eh,
a miracle.
she is,
Yes.
and no matter what you say, she's so humble about it. They've
Yeah.
had her on radio
Like
and
mum.
TV, and she literally is just. I mean, one of the sweetest things she ever did. I don't know if we ever talked about this. Is right before my amputation, she asked my hand and limb recovery specialist. She said, "Can you take my hand and give it to my mom?"
Oh,
And he just lost it,
yeah.
and I was like, "Oh no, I love you more than madness." And that is so sweet. And she meant it. And
Yes.
I said, absolutely not. We're not having this conversation. And she's just, I mean, she's just a beautiful soul who inspires everybody who gets around her. It was her idea to do Teen Talk. It's a Contagious Smile Teen Talk podcast where her and Logan, you met Logan.
Yes.
Um,
He
he is
interviewed me,
another,
incredible young man.
yes, he is another amazing individual. He's a Make a Wish recipient who has a life threatening heart condition. Since you've seen him, his heart has grown again, which is getting scary and scarier. And they host the show where teenagers can come on and talk about what they want to talk about.
Hmm.
They're unconditionally accepted for whom they are, and we unconditionally accept their values, and we listen and we try to make a change. And that was all Faith's idea, that
Yeah.
she felt that there was nowhere out there for teens to be heard.
No,
And
I've been
yeah,
trying for
and so
years to try and get something like this going. But
so
always
that's
running
her.
into parents and this, that, etc. So, it did take someone like Faith with a mother like you doing what you're doing. It's just perfect, perfect scenario for it to happen.
Well, she is my inspiration. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but you're her inspiration, and that's the thing. I mean, she knows your resilience, your strength, your courage, your ability to get up. I mean, you're in hospital, you're meant to stay there longer. You've had your hand off and you're busy talking about getting tattoos put on it. As you do, you put tattoos on your scars to redefine what they are. And then you're
Yeah.
back at it, and your husband, bless him, he went a whole day with his hand tied up, not being able to use it so he could actually understand what it is you're going through.
He didn't make it the whole day, but he tried, bless his heart. Yeah, my amputation, they said you'll be hospitalized for a week. My surgeon goes, obviously, you don't know her. I went
Hmm.
home the same night of my amputation, and I went in the bathroom and took off my dressing to see what it would look like. And yeah, that wasn't supposed to do that. But I own my mistakes, if you will, and I wanted to see. And what's harder for me, Sarah, is I have a history of I have a degree in sign language, so that makes it quite challenging for me
Right.
now with only
Yes.
one arm. I studied martial arts my entire childhood into my adulthood. And so that makes it a very challenging situation as well. So knowing that I was losing that, I kept it together. And I'm going to give you an exclusive that I haven't said to anybody. I kept it together until I got back in the OR. And that specific team has been with me for 17 surgeries.
Wow.
And so, like, one of them was pregnant a year before, and I brought her baby basket in the OR. I'm being wheeled in, and I have this little basket for her. And I was sitting in there, moving over to the table, and I literally was like, "How do I say goodbye to my hand?"
Mm,
And I had kept it together from my husband and my daughter, and I just said, "How do I say goodbye?" That is the only time I've ever lost it in an
mm,
OR. I don't do the Versed pre-operative because I don't take any pain meds for any surgery after. So I literally was just fully functional and saying, "How do I do this?" This was the hand that held my daughter's hand. This
yeah.
was the hand that my soulmate put a wedding ring on. This was
Mm,
the hand that my grandparents held that are no longer here. How am I going to get over this? And I lost it. Well, my anesthesiologist was crying with me. I said, "Please don't put me to sleep just yet." And she said, "No, you're going to take your time." And I apologized to the staff. I said, "I'm so sorry. I know you guys have other patients today." And they said, "No, we only have you, and we've
mm.
got you." And everybody was just emotional. And my surgeon, bless his heart, he comes in and he's crying.
Oh,
And he is like, "I'm going to take care of you." And I was like, how do I say goodbye? And I had never cried like I did in that specific OR. And I was like, "This stays in this OR. You don't discuss this with my husband because he's out there with my daughter and we don't talk about it. But I just need to cry it out because I have no other way to do it. I didn't ever want them to see me being
yeah.
shattered because of it."
But it's okay to share that with them. It's okay to cry. It's okay to lean on others. You don't have to be superwoman all the time, love.
I know you're always on my case, but I love you for it
Yeah,
because
exactly. Now, why did you have to have your hand off?
well, first it was domestic violence, and I felt like a toolbox, if you will. I had screws and pins and plates and wires. I've had four
Mm,
implanted devices put in. I went to a surgeon who was supposed to just do carpal tunnel surgery and out, little tiny 2 millimeter scar on the wrist, and he cut the ulnar nerve and severed it. Didn't get my permission to do basically anything that he did, and also wrapped it with a pig skin wrap. And then I knew basically right away after surgery something was wrong. And he was like, "Let's go back in and look." I gave him that opportunity. I came back and my hand was starting to claw. And I said, "Something is very wrong." And then I became paralyzed
oh,
on that part of my hand and arm for the ulnar and medial, because you have the ulnar, medial, and radial nerves. And so I literally lost the feeling there. They put me in for a nerve conductive study, and it showed that the paralyzation moved all the way into the muscle.
oh,
And so they diagnosed me with complex regional pain syndrome. And I just was like, "No." And we tried everything we could. We broke everything and reset it and then put pins and screws and then and nothing worked. And it just kept getting worse. And I had no other choice. And so we ended up having to take it.
our choice, especially when it's somebody else's mistake,
Right.
which I hope he was accountable for. Um, but I
Yeah.
mean, you're one of these people that really kind of you were picked up like a rag doll and just thrown against the proverbial wall over and over again. And, so much of has happened to you since. But where does your strength and your resilience come in? Because you are a strong woman that you don't even want to cry in front of your husband and daughter, the people that love you the most and are there for you the most because you're so super strong. But where did that come from? Where was that decision after everything that had happened to you that okay, I'm going to close the door in this chapter and I'm going to raise my daughter no matter what the challenges, no matter what my body challenges are, and I'm going to be there for other people. Where did that come from?
My grandparents,
Mm,
they were the implementation of everything I wanted to be in life. They showed me who I wanted to be as a human being, a friend, a wife, a mother. They were amazing. My biological parents were the complete opposite. They showed me what not to be like. Uh,
mhm,
I have a lot of respect. I still pray for my parents every night. We are no contact. We haven't spoken in years. They have nothing to do with my daughter or myself. And that's what my other book is coming out, Narc, Who's
mm,
There, the true individual behind the closed door for narcissism.
mhm.
Because I literally realized that they put me on the path of who I ended up with that was abusive. And
Right.
after decades of on the couch with an amazing therapist and finding out, I actually found out that my biological parents knew him and kind of edged him into finding me and meeting me. And yeah, so that's a tough one.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that you're actually being able to write a book on it. And I have actually done shows on narcissistic parents, and they just don't realize how much damage they do for their children. And,
Right.
I mean, parents are not, yes, it's sad that they went there, but thank God your grandparents were, because they were the opposite and they were love.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they literally taught me everything. I was born in the wrong generation. And so I implemented everything that they taught me into how I wanted to be a mom. Um, like my biological parents chose not to meet Faith until she was 3 months old, even though I reached out to them and let them know what was going on. And they weren't even 2 miles from the hospital, and they still
Right.
never came back when she was 3 months.
Not there for you, for your support, not there. Like you coded, you died, right? And not there for you at all. So, that speaks volumes of what kind of people they are. And,
Well, I had my hat off to them, Sarah, I gotta say, because after several months they did give us shelter to come to, but they weren't ever there. I was still taking care of my daughter. And so I have a lot of, thanks and gratitude for that. I have to say that. I still, if I hear anything that happens to them, I'm immediately like, are they okay? What's going on? And people say, why do you care?
yeah.
And my therapist took forever to say to me, if you didn't care, you wouldn't be you, and you would be just like them.
Yes. Yes. Because that's who you are. And sometimes you can care for someone without reaching out to them, especially when you know that they're so detrimental to you. And I think that's kind of knowing your boundaries. But it's I mean, you're just, capital C. Your thing is called contagious smile, but it should be courageous smile. It should be compassionate smile, and it should be, a caring smile because you're all the C's, completely. And that's who you are as a soul and as a spirit. And you haven't allowed, your spirit's being knocked about like crazy. Your
Yes.
heart's been trampled on, but yet your heart's too big to snuff out, and your spirit's too big for anyone to completely, diminish it. So, you've had you've had the universe on your side. You had your grandparents on your side, but that resilience, that soul, heart, spirit resilience is definitely something that you've been blessed with. Um, and it's because of that. As I said, I refer to you a lot in shows of that resilience of what you've been through, um, and that tenacity to not dwell on the past, allow that past to show you a different path, a choice path rather than an unchoice path, um, and to learn from it. I mean, I don't think your daughter would have achieved anywhere near what she's achieved without you as her example. And I know how loving your husband is over you and your journey. Got to come back and listen to the other shows to know that story, folks. And
That's a
but
story.
and yeah, but like he's not one to do podcasting. We've persuaded him to do so for the dogs, but it's because the love of you, and you are an example to him of what resilience and tenacity is. There's a capital letter there. But it's important for you to put that book out, not only as great therapy for yourself, but for other people to be aware. Narcissism comes from very often from children that are not taught to show compassion or caring for anyone else, right? We have to understand our children, when they're born, it's all about them. They cry when they're hungry, when they need hugs, when they need changing, when they need that. And everything is around their world because that's part of survival, part of learning. And at a certain stage, we need to start teaching them about caring for others, being considerate for others, paying attention to other people around them, not at the expense of themselves, but there being awareness of what other people need as well, and either being able to provide or just show compassion and caring. If they're not shown that as children, they continue on with me, myself, and everything for me at anybody's expense. And it gets
Yes.
uglier and uglier and uglier as they grow. And, you've got a few presidents out there that are absolutely capital narcissistic posters of showing that I don't care about anyone else as long as I've got. And when you've got it in parenting, it doesn't matter how much they think they love you. that insecurity in themselves, that little child in themselves that constantly needs to be verified and loved and paid attention to, is overriding anything else. And having a kid, very often it overrides the focus on them, and they
Yes,
don't like to share that focus.
that is true. And I have to tell you, I was very hesitant in doing this because, excuse me, um, because I've always been someone who has kept proof of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go through abuse, the only thing you have is your word.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, I'm choking
Bless you.
up. And you only have your word. And so my non-officially diagnosed father used me growing up to hide the many women in his life. And it was very hard. Like, my dad never came up and hugged me and told me he loved me. I never had my mother tell me that she loved me.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandparents were the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And I would get blamed for things if I wasn't even there, if I wasn't even at their house. And it was never a home, it was a house.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I did move back with my daughter, people say, why would you do that? Well, they were never home, and they lived in, or they still live in, a literal mansion. Their home is over 9,000 square feet, and you never see them. And to them, it's all about the impression others think of them.
Mm-hmm.
And well, what was really hard is, and some people still are very much against me publishing this book because it is, I made the decision, Sarah, to go to my biological mother, who I've never had a good relationship with ever. This woman actually told my daughter that if I died on the OR table, so what? And yeah, and
Yeah.
so she's very close to my brother, who I have no relationship with because, as you know, they pull the kids away from each other. And so my biological dad had many women, and he would use the excuse, oh, I'm going to dinner with the girls, meaning me and Faith. And there would be another girl who would approach at dinner and come sit with us. And I would get up and leave. I was like, I'm not this person. And I
Mm-hmm.
told him, I don't like your wife, my mom, but if you would divorce her, I'd be your biggest advocate for finding someone else. But you still have vows, and you need to respect them. And he actually started talking to this other girl who was younger than me. And he would constantly send me these text messages, Sarah. They were just horrific. And he was making fun of his son, and he was making fun of his wife. And he was just everything you could imagine. He would tell his wife he was going with me, my daughter, for her surgeries, but he'd go out and leave and go meet another woman.
Oh
Or
God.
he was going, here, and he would go out and meet another woman. Well, at one point I told my dad, I said, I'm going on a weekend. I tried to do that pretty often with Faith, where it was a mother-daughter weekend. And we were going to go to the aquarium and things like that. And we got a hotel and went out of town. And he said, I'll go with you. I'm driving. Like, that's the deal. And he had his own room. Faith and I had ours. And he, we got there Friday afternoon, late evening, or afternoon. And on Saturday, it started raining. And I said, hey, we're going to go back to the room, and I want to get a raincoat and all that for her. And he said, okay, I got to make some phone calls and I'll meet you in your room. Okay. Well, an hour goes by and he texts me, what's your room number? Blah, blah, blah. And there's a knock on the door. And I said, Faith, go get it. So she opens the door, and there is that woman, the woman's very small toddler, and my dad. And I was like, excuse me, what is this? And he's like, this is a perfect way for me to spend time with her by your mother thinking I'm with you. I was furious. So my daughter starts taking photographs of him with her. And then they ended up going out to a movie, and he left the toddler with us that night.
Oh God.
And it was just awful. And I have all that mindset. Well, you couldn't make this stuff up. You
Yeah.
you couldn't make this crap up. And so we started taking pictures. We took pictures of them canoodling together, feeding one another, just and he told me that if I told my mother, that he would say it was all my fault, that
Right.
I pushed this relationship, we would be out, we wouldn't have a place to live anymore. And at that point, I had to weigh the situation because we had 25 doctor's appointments a week between doctors and therapists. And so I couldn't afford to
Yeah.
get us into a home that's safe. And they had us safe physically environment. And whenever he would start, I would send Faith upstairs so she didn't get involved in it. So it would be me. Well, needless to say, I weighed very heavily on this and I decided to come clean after I left and moved out. And I came clean with her. And I said, this isn't a he said, she said. And I didn't print them all or bring them all, but I had over 400 different pictures and texts. And I said, look, if I was wanting to be malice, then I would have shown your son. But I know what this would do to him. If he saw how his father talked about him,
Yeah,
how his father doesn't accept that he is of the homosexual nature, how he says he's worthless. And these are all things that you can't make up. And I
right,
was showing her these pictures, and she's like, well, there's two sides to every story. What side do you see of him
right.
sitting here feeding this woman in a restaurant?
Yeah,
Or here he is in the hotel. I said, did he tell you she was going? And she was like, no. Well, if there was nothing to hide, why wouldn't he tell you?
yeah.
What?
It's not wanting to upset her own apple cart, her own security. For her, it's like the 9,000 square foot house. I would lose that. I would lose my
The
position in
maids,
society.
the
I would lose all of that.
gardeners.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. And I'm
she
not
had to
going
work
to
for
lose
nothing.
that. I'll just turn a blind eye to it. And I don't care if he's hurting my daughter and son as long as I'm okay.
Well, basically, ended up throwing our stuff on the curb of this really high swanky community, like we've been evicted. And I said, I'm not trying to hurt you in any way. I just can't live with this anymore. I just need you to know. And I said, this isn't the first woman. And I bet you, Sarah, I had 20 different pictures of 20 different women. And I was like, this has been going on forever, and you have no idea. And I'm sorry because I wanted to tell you, but he was threatening to evict us, and I didn't have anywhere else for us to go at that time. So he played that over me and then tried to blame me. And I
Right,
said, if I wanted malice, I would have shown your son. There are his horrific things that he has said and pictures he has said about his son. And I said, I'm not doing that because I don't want to hurt him. Even though
right,
you've made it where we don't have a relationship and we don't speak at all, I don't want to hurt him. I don't want him to, feel horrible or worse yet because he has his own situation, his own issues he's dealing with, if you will, like demons about all of this. I don't want to make it worse for him. So I didn't say a word. And believe it or not, we got served with no trespassing. Both myself and my daughter
good
uh,
God.
were told we weren't allowed to be there.
All right. So, so much for, you would die for your daughter as I would for my children, right?
Absolutely.
Here are people as long as you don't affect my lifestyle. And it's all denial, and that is narcissism. It's total denial of their own responsibility of what is in front of them because they just don't want their lifestyle interrupted. And so,
Absolutely.
and you were affecting that because for her to come clean with him about anything would
Yeah.
mean maybe a separation or divorce, and then what would she have? And
Well, I
so,
knew things that nobody would have known if my dad hadn't told me. And
right,
she knows that.
yeah,
So when I came clean and told her some of that, her face said, oh my God, how do you know these things? But they had three attics and they said, you can leave some of your storage stuff here because we moved in. This is my home. We have a home. We don't have a house. Like
right,
we weren't allowed to touch the walls there because you know what it costs to paint these walls again? It's like a museum.
right,
Well, here we put pictures everywhere and paintings and drawings, and
yes,
who cares? You can repaint it. So I left a lot of my storage stuff there, which was my daughter's baby clothes and some of my grandparents' things because we don't have the room here. Well, they served me with, you need to come get this stuff. You have 1 week. And I said, I just had surgery. There's no way I can come pick this stuff up. They discarded all of it, even my grandparents' stuff, everything. They got rid of all of my daughter's stuff as a baby that I was saving from everything she went through to my grandparents' things because I had shown her what he was like. I
right.
guess that was my
Well, I
turnout.
mean, the old saying, the true colors.
Right.
And I've just written my kind of memoir, a reflection of my life. And it's I was married to a narcissist, and my daughter read it, and she said, "Mom, you've been too nice.
Mm-hmm.
You really should say more." And I said, "Really, for me, it's about I know the pain I went through. I know the scars that I have. I know how it's affected me, but at the same time, I also know who I am today." And so for me, it's not dwelling on that. It's like it is what it is.
Right.
But the only names I've put in the book are of people that I wish to celebrate who have been there for me. I don't put any names of the people that have hurt me because I'm not going to lay myself open for any lawsuit, but also,
Well, you changed
um,
their name. You
yeah,
changed it.
well, I'm just they're nameless. They're referred to as husband or boyfriend or friend or this or that, but then they're because I don't want to give them any more power,
Right.
right?
That's what I did in Who Kicked First is I was very, very calm about them.
Yeah,
And people who were living that period with me said, why are you so like you're holding back? And I said,
yeah.
because I'm telling you, they would sue me for defamation if
Oh, they
possible.
would. Yeah.
And
They
so
really
I
don't.
did.
Yeah.
Well, this book coming out, I actually have all of the actual evidence, but I've redacted names.
Yes.
I redacted faces, but there's like pictures of my mom and brother that look like they're a couple. And that's a very weird relationship. And so I've redacted their faces, but I've also redacted any names on the text messages that coincide with the stories.
Right.
So you can see because all you have is your word. And
Yes.
they try to take that from you so often to make
Yeah.
you feel like you don't even deserve life.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
I was told, well, you deserve it because you chose to stay. You deserve it. What
Yeah.
did you do to make him mad? And
Right.
then
Yes.
you listen to this, and that's all you hear. And my husband will say, what did I do to deserve you? I don't
Right.
understand because and I'm like, I'm not that whatever. And he's like, you're crazy because you're amazing. And I don't understand why you don't see what I see. And,
Right. But
and
when you've been conditioned all your life, to be that, I mean, I know my parents loved me, and my dad died when I was 11, and I know that they loved me. But my mum was very insecure. She was looking for validation and love because she didn't get it growing up. In fact, at the age of 3, she was whipped for wanting to have a hug from her mother, right? So it was those times. And so they brought me up better than they were brought up. But still, I was a very sickly child and left alone a lot. Got my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If I had an attack as a asthmatic, they were there. But I just remember being alone for hours and hours and hours on my own. And it was not an intentional neglect. It was like, well, she's in bed, she's getting better, we'll give her food, but nothing else, then and I can't put any blame because it's just they weren't necessarily being narcissistic, they were just maybe being a little ignorant as to the
right,
other needs that were needed there. But
right.
I married my father and I loved my father. We were just beginning to get to know each other when I was 11. And he and my mother at this point were already, I mean, had it was already she wanted to leave and he said, I'll change the locks and you'll never see your children again. And he was very demeaning, you're fat and all of that. And I married somebody completely different. I married an Oriental gentleman in a different country, of a different faith, of a different this and that. But I married that aspect of my father. And it's like if we don't recognize the pattern, if we don't realize um, what's wrong, we're
Mm-hmm.
not aware of what to put right. So when you married your first husband there, you as you said, he was brought to you by your parents
Mm-hmm.
in their image. It's all you knew. I mean, your grandparents showed you the love, but you
That's what kept me sane was
right,
my
yeah, and that's what eventually got you out of it too. But the thing is, a parent, we're always as children looking for the love from our parents, and if our parents don't show that love, or if we feel we're not enough, we're not worthy. If your parents can't love you, then you must be unlovable. And
right.
so then you're very grateful for anybody that's in your life, right? Because, oh, they've shown love to me. But we find out it's a fake love because it's a
Yes.
conditional love. I'll
Right.
only love you if. And
Yes.
as
You do
as
this
my
for me.
husband said to me, and somebody took the control he had over me away from him. And so it was all about control and manipulation and also complete denial. When the piranha came out from room to room to room, sucking out all my energy just at me, never physically touched me, but when you've got that energy over you, sucking the life out of you and the things
Right.
that were said, and you couldn't escape it at all. Until he was spent, he would follow you from room to room to room And then the next day, absolutely have no recollection of it at all. And my son even filmed him once and he even denied what he saw because a complete and utter denialist. And that is narcissism.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry that you went through
Oh
that.
no, I mean, go nothing to what you've been through. But the whole point is we're trying to be worthy in their lives. And when we realize there's no worthiness in their life because they are lost children
Right.
who haven't got any self-esteem or self-value or compassion because somewhere along the line they lost it. Now, the fact
Mhm.
that you had such loving grandparents, but ended up, was it your grandparents of your mom or your dad?
My dad.
Right. And
You know
so
what? What
for
was
him to end
dumb?
up the way he was.
What was dumbfounding to me, Sarah, is I asked them, "How did you raise that boy? Like, how is he your son?" And I
Yes.
didn't know, Sarah, the explanation definition until I got with my ex-husband because she said they've ruined each other and I'm angry about it. She's like, that is not the son that I raised.
Right.
And I didn't understand or comprehend it. I was in my teens and I didn't understand that. But then when I got married to my ex and he became abusive, like I started becoming that battered, beaten wife who
Yeah.
wouldn't look people in the eye and look down and jumped
Uh,
at every sound. And then I just came to me and I thought, I get it. Like
yeah.
they changed me. They changed me. And
Yeah.
every time, even growing up, I spent the weekends with my grandparents. I spent the summers with my grandparents. And it was like, I told them, I said, I just don't even want to do it anymore. I left their house, the parents' house, when I was finished my junior year of high school. And I told them, I said to my grandmother, I said, either I go get a small studio apartment and I go through and finish school, or I drop out of school because I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And the mentality I had growing up was, to this day, I've never been drunk. I never drank. I don't do any drugs. I haven't smoked cigarettes or pot or anything like that. And I never wanted to disappoint them. And there were
Mm.
so many times that I just was like, screw it. If they're being jerks to me, why can't I, and I'll
Yeah.
come right back. But
Yeah.
if they attacked me, I always apologized to them. If somebody made
Yes.
them mad, I apologize for whoever made them mad.
Right.
Well, then they came after Faith, and well, now you're touching the tigering mom, and that's a whole different story.
Yes.
So that was how it was. And there were times, Sarah, that I just wanted to throw in the towel, but then I kept thinking, then I'm not going to live up to doing what I promised my grandparents, which was to emulate what I've wanted in life, and that was them.
Yeah.
And every picture you see of me as a child of my grandparents, they had me reaching up for the stars.
Yes.
And they told me I could reach anything. There's only very few pictures of my parents, and in every one, I'm crying.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, the soul contract, we do choose our parents to have that experience, and we don't know what experience we're about to go through, but it is the definition of then who we are and what we're meant to become and learn from this life. But some of the things that some parents do to their children are so evil.
Unforgettable. Yes.
And
That's why I was breaking the cycle.
yeah,
Break the cycle.
exactly. And either people repeat it unknowingly. As I said, I married my father, the worst side of my father, not the other side of him. And in a lot of ways, it's a touch of the adventurism, um, but
Mhm.
probably not the same courage, as quite honestly, as my dad had. But it was funny, my dad was in the war. He was a squadron leader. He would go in at night, stealth to get out spies. He would do all of that. But when he was meant to come to Canada from England because they were in the timber business, and he was meant to come over here and open the business over here in Canada because I'm in Canada. And a week before he backed out, he didn't have the courage to do it. All his courage had been in there, but not in life. And it's like it's um it's so interesting because quite honestly, we can be very courageous in a moment of expectation. But when it comes into making choices for our own life, can we find the courage
Very
for that, right?
right.
You,
Absolutely.
your husband, as I said, the police had everything on him, but he was protected by the military, which is shame on them. And that's not the only story that I've covered on that, which I think is ridiculous. But it's unfortunately because he was protected and given an early retirement, he's never learned his lesson. He's probably gone on to do it to someone else as well, right?
Yes, my understanding, and I used to kind of not. I would just try to find out where he was, so I would know geographically for safety reasons. My understanding is since then, first wife has been killed, and that was before me, even though I thought I was the first. Um, and as far as I know, and this is what I've been told, so don't hold me to the number exactly, but my understanding is he's on wife like number 9.
Good God. Right. Yeah. Unbelievable. And would you marry somebody that's been married 8 times? But I suppose if he's lying about it, but there
He was
again,
such a charmer, but that's
yeah.
part of the
Yes,
wheel
that
and
is
the
a
animal.
narcissist. Oh my God. They can be
Sarah,
so
I didn't even
charming.
live with him until we were married. And
Right.
we I was the good girl, quote unquote,
Yes.
until after it was part of the other show. But like I didn't live with him because of my career until after we were married and we got pregnant right away. But yeah, he was so charming. And I openly told him I wasn't in love with him, but I love the person he showed himself as.
Yes.
And there's a big difference. And he
Yes.
hated my husband now, like absolutely hated him because he was my boyfriend before. And that's all I'm going to say. So
Yeah. Have to come
that
back
was
to the other
the
show
big
and
problem.
listen.
Yes, but I was never attracted to him. He wasn't my type. He wasn't physically appealing. Like my friends were like, "Seriously, is this a joke?" No way, no. And he was so charismatic and charming,
Yes.
and that's how they get you in. They find your weak spot,
Yeah.
which mine was children.
Yeah.
And as soon as he found that out, he played that card. He doubled down, and that was the end of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? That charm is that every time you find something else about them, case in point, a woman or something like that, how they can turn it around and be so convincing and so charming that you completely deny or doubt what it is you know. Because they have very, very good ways of manipulating out of it. And quite essentially they're con men or con
Yes,
women, because there's plenty of them around. And that's
there
what a
is.
narcissist is. They're very, very good at manipulating the truth and
They are.
making
And
you feel like you're the only person, and that it's all about you. And they keep that up for 2 or 3 days and then back to their ways.
right. And I just want to tell your listeners because you're fabulous, but the only real other thing beside my word that kept me sane was I kept like even the military kept saying, "Why do you have so much proof? Why do you have so much proof?" And it was because nobody's listening, nobody's
Right.
hearing.
Yeah.
And so I kept every letter he wrote. I kept every letter he wrote to his cousin, who wasn't even not only not a cousin, not even alive.
Oh
And
my God.
I kept everything, and that's part of my background. That's part of my professional background. But I kept everything because, as you know, when you're going through this and you're told you're ugly every day, nobody would
Yeah.
ever love you.
Yeah.
You're never going to do better than me. Blah 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 blah. And you're raised in such a format the same way that you really start to believe that. And I would go
Yes.
back and look at this stuff and read this stuff, and then I would try to go back and think of the memories and then think of my grandparents, and that's what really kept me sane. And so anybody going through this, please please please, keep the stuff, send it to your office
Yeah.
so that he can't find it or she can't find it, and then go back and reflect that it's not you. Don't let that individual turn them
Right.
into what they want. Stay who you are, stay strong. Your inner light will shine. And if you need any help along the way, I am right here and you will get me every step of the way.
Exactly. And she means that, folks. And yeah, I mean, the thing too is the you find a few friends to confide into, but
Right.
because they're so charming, they don't believe you,
Right.
right? And up until a few years, I mean, we've been parted 23 years now and are fully divorced. But some years ago, I remember telling my bestie, about things that we're doing. He said, "But you look so good together. I never would have thought it. I didn't understand why you divorced." And
Right.
even when I told them what was going on, it was like, "But I didn't see that." Well, just because you didn't see that didn't mean it wasn't happening. What you
Right.
saw was the facade,
Yeah. Behind
right?
closed doors is a totally
Yeah.
different thing.
So please believe the person. Please listen to the person that has actually had the courage to say to you there's something wrong,
It takes
right?
a lot to come
Yeah.
out and talk about it.
Yeah.
It really
Because
does.
you're being just as much as the problem by dismissing them and saying it's all in their head, or no, that he wouldn't do that or she wouldn't do that. That that makes that person feel even smaller and
Right.
feels more and more hopeless. So, yes, you've got the people that are manipulators themselves and they manipulate the truth. But the thing is, look really deeper than the surface.
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I became really ill. That was what happened to me. My body broke down, and nothing like you, where the operations where he literally broke your body down. As I said, he never physically touched me, but I became sick because he broke my spirit down and broke me down. And it was eventually my kids that said, Mum, time to divorce. It was my kids that said this is not going to happen anymore. Otherwise, I would have stayed until my youngest was old enough, and she said, to hell with that. We can't survive another few more years. So it was them.
Good for them. And
Good
that's
for them.
because of
I owe
you.
it to them completely.
That's because of
Um,
you.
I decided I wasn't going to have a vicious divorce, that it was, I planted the seed in him that he wanted to go, and he kind of, quote, lived in the house for 2 years in a separate room, but he was with his girlfriend most of the time. And eventually I said, it's time to move out. And he did. But we would still attend functions together, and people go, well, how can you be together and you're separated? Because it was, kind of, it was a way for him to gracefully move on so that
Mm,
I didn't end up with the ugliness, because I knew how ugly it could get.
yes.
We've walked our daughter down the aisle together. We see each other now and again when it's a family event. And in a lot of ways, I feel sad. You talked about your parents not seeing Faith until she was 3, and like she was in and out of hospital. They should have
But
been there
she's
by your
3 months
side.
old. Right.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
But my ex hasn't seen the latest baby until he was 3.5 months.
Oh,
And
and
there
he's
was no,
so cute.
and he could have
Oh,
just got it. Yeah, I know he's adorable, isn't he? He really is.
face. That
And
face.
and
Oh.
he's finally gaining weight, thank God, because with Down syndrome, there's been a lot of problem with the eating, and you know all about that. And so he's finally on the right formula, and he's gaining weight and is gaining strength, which is wonderful. Um, and he only just met him recently, only because my daughter went to the mainland, and they are a ferry ride away, right? And he's retired. He could have come over, but he didn't make the effort, right? So, but and it's just this. No, I'm busy. I'm doing things, and we call him the dim sum dad. We see him at dim sum because he's Oriental. We see him at dim sum. So, and that's the way it is. And the thing is, one of the hardest things is when you know that you've received, and for you, the reminder, of course, is your body of what he did to you is a daily reminder. You can't kind of go, I could shut the door on him and never think of him again, because it's every day. It's
Mhm.
being represented not only in your body, but in Faith's body. But where did you find that courage to, when you knew that kind of the military had turned against you, even though everything the police had would have put him in jail and locked and thrown away the key, um, when everybody had let you down
Mhm.
and you knew you were on your own, right? Yes, you're with your parents who aren't really being supportive, but when was it that you decided, I'm going to start Courageous Smile? I'm going to fight for other women. I'm going to be there for everyone else. When was that turning point for you?
There, I didn't even realize I was doing it
Mm.
when we were in the NICU. Like she had her own clothes. I didn't want her in the hospital gown, so I was having things delivered to the hospital, or my friends would pick up stuff and deliver it for me, and that's what I was doing. And for the longest time, I would just look down and be like, I'm I just I'm all scarred up everywhere. And my dad said I look like Freddy Krueger and the Elephant Man had a baby together. And that's what he would say. And it was, you're repulsive. Nobody's ever going to want you. You have all these scars. I was stabbed a dozen
Oh
times.
my
It was just
God. Oh my
horrific
God.
things. And then I looked down at my daughter and I thought, are you kidding?
Yeah.
She fought for me and I'm going to
Yes.
fight for her. And I want her mom to know that, I mean, I want her to know that her mom fought hard for her and we are going to overcome everything and we're going to do it together. And it took time. And then when she would grow out of certain things while we were in the hospital, I'd pass it on to other kids.
Mm.
And we kind of started doing it that way. And then the chief of the cranial facial department came up and said, are you ever like seriously, you just need to start a support group because you are so
Mm.
knowledgeable and so helpful. And I said, what am I going to do? And he said, are you serious? Like you're already helping so many
Yeah, you're
people.
already doing it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said, if that's what you want me to do, and that's where I started. And it just went from there. And then I started looking at my scars, and my dad would make comments all the time like, "Oh, are you bored on a Saturday night? Let me get you a Sharpie marker and you can spend the night connecting them all together and you'd be, entertained for hours." And I didn't want my daughter, who had scars, she had a
Yeah.
trach and then she had other scars, for her to ever feel that way. Like, I can say
Yeah.
today, and she can come in here and tell you, I have never said anything hurtful. I might say, "Faith, I don't like how you're acting," but you'll
Yes.
never ever hear me say I don't love you. And I'll tell
Right.
her, I love you. I don't love how you just did this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I've never raised a hand to her. I have never spanked her. I have, to this day, I can say I've never said anything I regret. I've never name called her. So I literally started looking at my scars saying, you know what? This is how many times he tried and he
Yes.
failed. He's
Yes.
the coward.
Yeah.
He's the coward. He picked on a pregnant woman,
Yeah.
shot and killed a puppy, and did all the things that he did. He's the coward. Are you
Yes.
kidding me? These are, you know what? This is my battle of armor and I'm going to wear it. And
Yeah.
that's where I started to do it. But I also started covering them with the tattoos of I didn't have any tattoos before. And I put tattoos of my journey with Faith on there because people were staring at me and I didn't want her self conscious about her scars. So people were like, "Oh, that's a really beautiful tattoo," or
Yeah.
things like that. So that's kind of where it started. And then it just went on and on from there.
Hmm. And like what you're doing today, like you have an entire platform there with women who are being abused in America. You've got resources for them. You've got an entire platform for parents who have children that are struggling or parents that are struggling. There you have platforms and programs for them and to help and support like that. I mean, I started another channel called Supporting the Supporters,
Mm-hmm.
primarily because of you. All right.
No, come
Yes.
on.
Yes, you're the number one up there. And then there's a few other
I love
people
this
that are
woman.
doing wonderful work that are there as well. But I mean, when you talk about, you've got 4 million viewers, folks, she doesn't make any money out of this, which we have to change. It's time for her to make money. I mean, we need sponsors to sponsor her. I mean, if Christ's sake, if 4 million isn't enough people for you to sponsor her and the work that they're doing as a couple and as a person, and what Faith is doing. What
Yeah.
the example that she's showing people.
And
It's you've
she's
got
working with teens too. She'll actually work with
yes,
special needs teens as well. I want to say that we did get some donations in, Sarah, and I have to tell you that we donated one of our beautiful puppies to a gorgeous little girl who generically I can say went through a horrific experience. She was sexually assaulted by a number of people in a gang rape situation, and she had not even become a teenager yet. So I can say
uh,
that because that's 13. And she ended up in the hospital. She ended up pregnant and she ended up having a she ended up having to have a miscarriage and she ended up very badly beaten. Straight A student, absolutely breathtaking, gorgeous little girl. And when I learned about her, her family didn't have a lot of money. So I started showing them about waivers and
mm,
things that they could do for insurance. And then she was like, the mom was like, "There's no way she'll talk to you." And I said, "Let me just try." And I just talked to her. And, we didn't even talk about anything specifically. I found out something she loved. And so I was like, "I love that too. Are you kidding?"
yeah.
And we started talking about things. And then I had her start drawing things. And it might have been a little, kiddish to her, but she did it and she opened up. And then I was like, "Do you like dogs?" And she loved dogs. So she met Stucco, who everybody loves. And so I said to her, I said, "I want to give you a gift." And I'd already okayed it with her mom and dad. And I said, "I just want you to know that this is Stucco's baby. And I can't give you Stucco because he's my service dog. But what if we give you this one?" And that she just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And she's turned herself around. She's getting her stuff back in order. She's now in therapy. She's amazing. And we donated that dog to her. I mean, it cost us about $3,000 a month to do the upkeep because we don't cut any corners with these
Hmm.
dogs. And we donated the dog to the family.
And this is what you're supporting, folks. This is what you're out there supporting is that you know what I find saddened? It's the people who have been through the worst are the people that start these organizations, right? So
It
people
seems that
who
way.
have
Yeah.
it all, who've had it a lot easier in life, are the people are less likely to support. And
Right.
I'm saying, folks, it's time to change that, right? Look at the battle that she's been through, the whole family's been through, and look at what she's doing. to support other people on that battle. Okay, maybe you can't get down there in the nitty-gritty with her, but my God, you can support her financially in the work they're doing. It costs them a fortune to breed these dogs and look after these dogs. Never mind the work that Victoria does, never sees a cent for it. Never. And she needs support on this. So when are we going to stand up and not just say, oh, you're incredible, you're amazing, you're a sensational woman? Where are we going to put some dollars and going, what do you need, Victoria?
I wouldn't even know how to answer that, Sarah.
No, but I want the public to ask you. I want people who are listening to this to ask you. I want people that are seeing this to ask you, how can we support you? One latte a week less, folks, can make a difference on a consistent basis. They've got a GoFundMe. All of that money goes into the dogs. And the
100%.
breed, they, they've got to feed them. They've got the vet bills. They've got to do everything else before they can let these dogs go out. And never mind the work that she's doing and the service that she's giving. And I do get a little bit peeved when I see so
She
many
does.
people. You get really people are out there doing all that work that's providing so much for other people, and yet they are not financially supported. Yeah, I'm putting myself in that bracket too. But
Good. I
it's
was
time
about
for
to.
change. It's
I was
time
about to
for
put you in
change.
there.
Um,
Yes.
and you can be a sponsor or you can be a supporter, a monthly supporter. Just I support other groups and I can't even remember why I'm supporting them. $8 here, $10 there, whatever, but I know what they're using it. This is a cup of coffee, folks, for you that can make a difference every month and just supporting. And God knows, it's going to go to good use. You know, it's going to support what she's doing that she's been doing now for so many years. This is a reason why she's in the book. I mean, Forgotten Children series, she was a forgotten child. And she didn't forget her own child, where so many people would have given up on their child. She doesn't forget other people's children. She's out there fighting that fight. And she's so well deserving to be a person in the book. And of course, one of the things about the Forgotten Children series, which you can find the financing and supporting of that is coming up in the next week or so. A Kickstarter where we are actually raising money to publish this book. We're not asking our participants to do this because they're already contributing so much, but money raised from the book actually goes back to them in supporting the work that they're doing, because it's about time somebody did, and you can be a part of that. So please go to the Orchard of Wisdom, orchardofwisdom.org, and you will see the Forgotten Children series book platform there, and you'll be able to support it and support people like Victoria who are in the book, who are bringing about awareness on the forgotten children and systems and things that need to change that we can be a part of. That's what it's all about. It's always a wonderful delight having you on. Always, always, always. When your book is finished, we'll have you back and talk more about in depth on that. But we've certainly scratched the surface today. And yeah, it's an important story to tell because there's so many people going through that story. And people look at the 9,000 square feet and all the illusion and the plastic, and they think that that person's got it all and everything's hunky-dory and nobody knows. This is what I said earlier. It's not just the children that have been beaten or that are poor. There's a lot of rich kids out there
Mhm.
that are going through as much suffering, is that people
Absolutely.
just think because just coming from their rich family that that they're not going through it and they should have everything. Do not think that, folks, because there's a
No,
lot of neglect going on in the meantime. So
that's absolutely right. I walked away from all my inheritance because I knew that that was going to happen, but my happiness was worth it.
yeah. Oh God, yes. Yes. Your sanity, your happiness, your platform, everything. And what is money in the end if it's cost you your soul, your heart,
Yeah,
and your spirit?
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
that just makes you soul, heart, and spirit poor. And you've
Yeah.
got a lot of money, but you're forever chasing happiness. And the happiness lies within in meaningful purpose, in love. And that's where you find it when you find your service, right? And you certainly have found yours. So yep, the Kickstarter will be coming up very soon, and she'll be promoting it as well. Please come and listen to her podcast. She interviews some incredible people. Listen to the Courageous Smile Kids podcast as well. Watch some of Faith's YouTubes and all the things that she's doing, because what an example she is as well.
Mhm.
But if you want to know what courage is and whether you could have it or not, well, just a fraction of Victoria's story will show you that you can find it within yourself. We all can. Doesn't matter what hand or handless we've been dealt, you all can. Exactly. And it's all a question of what are you going to feed? What are you going to seed? And what drives you? And what should drive you is self-love and love of something more important than you two, right? But never forget your self-love, because that's where it comes from. Um, Again, my love, how do people get hold of you? How do they listen to the shows?
we are everywhere. We are on every platform, Apple Podcasts, we're on Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, we're TikTok. Everything is a contagious smile. We a contagiousmile.com is the website. We even, if you go to tpublic.com, it's a merchandise store, and if you type in a contagious smile, we have all sorts of adorable puppy merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cute, where you can wear the shirts and the sweatshirts and the phone cases and things, and all of that goes back to helping with the dogs as well. So TikTok and Instagram's a contagious smile, website's a contagious smile, podcast, it's a contagious smile. It's just contagious.
YouTube, contagious,
Everything.
everything.
It
And
is.
of course, the website is acontagiousmile.com. And
Yes,
her
ma'am.
book, Who Kicked First, her memoir, Victoria Coure, is on Amazon. And that is the story of her ex and exactly what he did. And please come back and listen to our other shows. Our husband show is on here about the dogs, and his journey is also extraordinary. The supporting the families of special needs and what Contagious Smile is all about. Of course, this show, and of course the stuff that she's going to be doing with us on self-discoverywisdom.com and on the orchardofwisdom.org. And all you have to do is put in her name in the search engine, Victoria Coure, and everything will come up. And this is, if you're looking for someone to get behind, you needn't look any further.
Thank
And
you.
I'm very honored to have her in the book. And at the same time, it's just the work that you're doing is exemplary. And we can all be a part of it in some way. Maybe we can physically help by offering you services, or maybe, can be supportive and a cheerleader, or maybe can support by money. But, ask her. Yes, she's going to go, oh, no, I don't need anything. Balderdash, she does. Don't listen to that. Just say, okay, what is it you're doing that you need some support on? Maybe you could offer your services. Maybe there's something you could do to help her. Remember, she's one-handed now, right? Now, this one hand is incredibly powerful and does a great deal, but she could do with another hand. Okay, so step up, folks, and help her out. So wonderful having you here, Victoria.
Thank you, Sarah. I love you. You're just amazing.
Yeah, right back at you, my darling. Mwah. And to everyone else out there, remember, never give up, never give in. You are worth so much more. You have it in you. All you have to do is be willing to take the journey and always keep love at the core of your heart. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.